Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, we will work on CSV files. We will also understand the challenges that will occur while reading CSV files in Python, and also how to tackle these challenges using Python. So once again, you can install pandas using these two commands here, pip install or pip3 install, as you already know, based on your system configuration. Now, the first step that we usually do in order to check whether library is present in Python or not in our local system, we try to import it. So here we are seeing import pandas as PD. So when you run this code, you'll see that it doesn't give any error. And then we print the version of the pandas. In case pandas was not present in the system, these two commands is going to give an error. We could have used one of these commands here to install the pandas. Now, the first thing that we are going to do is we'll read a simple CSV file. Let's see how our CSV looks like. So we are going to go here and then dataset folder, and we have here Big Mart Sales CSV. We double click on it and then you will see that we have the column names, item weight, item identifier, item fed content, and these are the values. Everything is separated by a comma. So this is actually a data set that we have taken as a sample data set, and it's the sales data set from a store known as Big Mart. So let's go back to our notebook. So at this point, you already know that if you want to import a CSV in pandas, you just need to use pd.read_CSV, and then you will write where the data set is located. So let's do that. So the type of data that we have here when we run this in this variable data is actually data frame type, pandas.core.frame data frame. So you can imagine a data frame is a data structure in Python. So you can consider that a data frame is actually a type of data structure that pandas provides to you in Python. Now, data frame has multiple features, like it's two-dimensional and you can have columns of different data types. It's very similar to spreadsheet or a table that you have in SQL, and it's one of the most commonly used data structures in pandas. Let's see how our data looks like. So we are using here data.head function, and if you go back to CSV, here we have FTA15, DRC01. This is the same CSV, right? We have FTA15, DRC01. Now, when we read this dataset in Python, as you already know, the first thing that we are curious about is to know how many rows and columns are present in our data. In order to do that, we are going to use data.shape function. So our dataset has 8,523 rows and 12 columns. So this was a basic way of reading a CSV file in Python using pandas data frame and seeing how many rows and columns are there and what does the data look like. Now let's go to some of the challenges that we face when we are reading the CSVs in practice. So the first challenge that we will have is in our CSV, we'll actually have the first few rows, which are like command in Python. And we want to avoid reading these rows because these are essentially command and these do not form the part of the dataset. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So notice we have our data starting from here, this line. Above this, we have a bunch of commands written by the person who has either created this dataset or created this dataset, and this basically tells some general info about the dataset. So this is something that you find a lot when you are working with real-world data or open source data. People usually add commands describing the data in the file in the initial few lines of the file. Now, let's go back and try to read this file. Now, if you try to read this file by the same way that we had to read previously, you'll actually get an error. So we got a parser error, and it's like it's not able to tokenize and so on. So in order to prevent this error, you have basically tell pandas that avoid reading these first couple of lines because this is not where the dataset starts. Start reading from, say, the line number 6. So let's see how you can do that. So in order to do that, there's a parameter in pandas read CSV function, which is skip rows. So you can just say how many rows you want to skip of the data set. So when we look at the data set, the actual data starts from line number 6. Therefore, we need to skip the first 5 rows. So that's why I have skip rows equals 5 here. Now, if you run the same code here, we don't have any problem, and the data has been loaded without any error. So this was challenge number 1. Now, the second challenge that we have when we are dealing with CSV is a lot of times when you are working with, say, open source data, or you have some data from your data engineering team, you'll notice that the dataset is actually divided into multiple folders and directories in your system. So you don't have one single CSV, but you might have different CSVs spread across different folders. So let's see what I mean. Under dataset here, we have multi-directory folder, which I uploaded before recording this video. Let's click on that. If you open this folder, you'll see there are multiple subfolders, each with an year as its name, 1985, 1987, 1997, and so on. And if you open each folder in each subdirectory, you will see that there is a CSV. This CSV is basically sales record for that year. So what has happened is you have received the data in this format where you have sales record of the store divided by year in different directories. Now the question is, how can you read this in Python? Let's see. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the glob library. So glob is essentially a library that you use when you want to read multiple files together in Python. It kind of helps you to automate the process and make it easier. So let's import the glob library, import glob. Then you write this code from directory in glob.glob, and you give the path of the directory, which is the multi-directory, and then you give the star symbol or asterisk symbol. This basically says any folder inside the multi-directory folder. Now let's see how many subfolders does glob detect in this multi-directory folder, and we want to print all the subfolders. So according to glob, these are the subfolders which are correct: 1985, 1987, 1997, and so on. When we go to the multi-directory, you will see the subfolders. Now we also want glob to see how many files or CSVs we have in each of these folders. So initially we run a single loop for all the subfolders. You can run another loop inside the first loop to be able to see the files in each subdirectory, using the same method, and this time give the directory path at / and star. So initially we are going inside the multi-directory and taking all the folders and looping over them. And now within each folder that we have in the directory, as you know, this is a directory value at each iteration. Within each folder we also again to look for a / which basically says any files that are present inside these folders. So let's see what are these files. We run this. So now using glob, we have figured out how our data set looks like in terms of the folder structure. What is the next step? So the next step is we read all of these files. We'll have to combine all of these CSVs into one single CSV, because at the end of the day, all of these CSVs talk about the same store, the sales data of the same store but for different years. So that's what we have done. We use the same two loops here, as you see, to iterate over all the subfolders of this multi-directory, and in each directory go through all files that are present. Then what we do is we read the CSV file, which is basically if you first read the 1985 CSV file, and then 1987, and then 1997, and so on, and we keep appending these CSV files to the list. Which list? This is the data frame list. This is an empty list, and we are appending all these files into this list. So all of these CSV files are first we read as data frames in Python using pd.read_csv, and we have just made a single list of all of these data frames. So let's run this one. Once you run this, you can actually try to access this list by just typing here data_frame_list, and now you will see that here there are multiple data frames in this list. When you take the length of this entire list, let's run this, you will get 9, and this is how many folders and files we had previously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we had 9 files inside 9 different folders, and that's what this list has, its 9 different data frames. Now you have all these data frames as a list. The next thing that you do is you want to combine all of them. To combine these data frames, we use the concat function of pandas. It basically concatenates all of the data frames, one below the another. So let's see what happens when you concatenate. And we check the first rows. So as you can see, all of the data frames have been concatenated, and you can also see the shape of this final data. Let's run this final_data.shape. And it has the same shape as the original data. It has 8,523 rows and 12 columns. So this was challenge number 2. When you are working in real-world data setting and you have multiple files, each of which are supposed to be combined to get your entire data set. So this is how you can achieve this using glob and the concatenate functions of pandas. In the next video, we will continue with challenges of reading CSV files. Thank you for watching this video.